I am hella excited to be here for the record. This is incredible. I love the energy that happens here. So my name's Josh. I've just graduated from computer science at King's College London. I'm now working for a professional services company called Digital. But that's a bit boring. So I was actually the lead organizer for both of the HackLondons and ended up stepping in to look after Hack Kings when the lead organizer there fell ill. On top of that, I'm part of the MLH Coaches program, which is incredible. And if any of you have any questions, you should come speak to me or any of the other coaches. We'd love to tell you more. So today, I'm going to be telling you about managing chaos. I'm going to tell you what to do when things go wrong. I'm going to say hackathon 99% of the time, but realistically, I'm talking about any tech event, any conference, anything that you want to run, because most of it applies. So today's lesson, I'm going to be covering 3 main topics. What happened the first time I organized a hackathon, 5 steps to dealing with chaos, which I nicked from someone else, and a secret about event organizing. So first, I'm going to tell you a couple of the horror stories from the first hackathon I organized. And hopefully these will give you a bit of perspective, especially like the first time organizers, on how shit can go sideways in the most spectacular fashion at the drop of a hat. So first hackathon I ran was the first HackLondon in February last year. It was a collaborative effort between 2 London universities, which was King's College London and University College London, who had been known to have a bitter rivalry up until that point. So it was really cool. It was an incredible experience and a fantastic team. But there were a few points during the weekend where everything went a bit wrong. So Saturday night of the first hackathon I ever ran, and things have been pretty chaotic so far. I sat down for about 5 minutes in the space of 24 hours. And then we get this message on Twitter. Now, to sum it up, it's basically the university newspaper is going to be doing a naked rugby photo shoot in the middle of the venue. Now, to give you some perspective here, that's the venue. Let's see if this works. That is the hackerspace. And that is where the naked rugby team was. This was also at the same time where we had all of our judges coming in, down here, with their children. So sometimes things do spiral wildly out of control, and that's okay, that's going to happen. What's important is how you deal with it. So let's carry on. Case of the time-traveling breakfast. So my second story, right, so it's the same day now. And we start waiting for breakfast at 9 a.m. Cautiously optimistic. What else can go wrong, right? And we're still waiting at 10 a.m. until eventually one of the other organizers goes off to find out what's happened. And he comes back and he goes, oh, so the breakfast arrived? Oh, good. Last Sunday. So, what do you do when this happens? I eventually narrowed it down to 5 steps. I did a little Googling around and found this document called Dealing with Disaster, which is a document produced by the Home Cabinet, which is UK government. Good job there, guys. That was a cheap shot, and I'm sorry. I'm sure the US has something similar. I hope you do. And it covers 5 major points. And they are assessment, prevention, preparation, response, and recovery. So I'm going to go through these now. First, we have assessment. During a hackathon, there are a lot of things that go wrong. So realistically, trying to figure out everything that's going to go wrong through several million risk assessments just isn't going to work. Plus, try putting naked rugby team on a risk assessment, see how far that gets you. So instead, focus on the major things. And the major things are, as above, food, venue, medical emergency, complaints, power and Wi-Fi, and sponsor issues. I'm going to cover these in a bit more depth later. So we go on to prevention. This is a weirdly organized document I found. Now, most of the previous cases, there's no way to prevent most of that from happening. It either will happen or it won't happen. So instead, we're going to look at how just general tips for preventing chaos arising. First thing is have access to everything you need to at all times. This goes on a lot to things like receipts and contracts. Obviously, you should have receipts and contracts. If you're taking voice agreements in, you're going to get screwed at some point. Either a sponsor will go, well, actually, did we really owe you that? Or your dinner doesn't turn up. So you should have all these things available, and you should have all these things available in a centralized location. Somewhere where all your organizers can access it, somewhere where your volunteers can access it if they need to. One of the best ways I've seen this is using Git books, which is Kevin here? Kevin's not here. So Kevin's doing, oh, there you are. So Kevin's been doing some Gitbook stuff for the hackathons he's run, which has been really useful. Running hackathons with Kevin's an absolute delight. So definitely go speak to him about that. Next is sleep. I'll take that at the end. Cool. Next is sleep. Sleep is hella important. You should be sleeping. Your team should be sleeping. Your volunteers should be sleeping. Everyone should be sleeping except your attendees, pretty much. You got your bus factor. Bus factor is something that Tim introduced to me last Hackcon, and it encompasses this question of what would happen if somebody got hit by a bus tomorrow, like touch wood. And it's the point of you don't want to have like all the responsibility lying on one person. If you've got all your food going through me, for example, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow and you wanted to get your food on the weekend, you're pretty stuffed. To emphasize this, Hack Kings, the lead organizer there, Fares, got appendicitis 3 days before the hack. 2 days before the hack, he had that appendix out. And obviously, he was bedbound at that point. And the only reason why I could step in and sort of help run that hack was because he'd left everything open. Everything was with teams as opposed to just with one person. So don't centralize. Next, clear points of contact. So this follows a bit on from the bus factor. You should have clear points of contact at all times. Your volunteering team especially might not know who to go to for what, if they're new to the venue, if they're new to the team. You should make sure to identify your organizers and your MLH rep. And you should also give backups. So when your organizers, your reps, etc., go to bed, you want to still be able to communicate. Otherwise, nighttime is going to be fun. So identify them, make sure everybody knows how to get hold of them, and make sure there's a communication sort of medium that they can, like everyone can use. Walkie-talkies are really good for instant communication. You've also got things like Slack, although less so. Some people don't check Slack that often, or phones run out of battery when you've been running around for 24 hours. And Facebook groups at a real stretch. One thing that I've seen works really well is having a help desk that's manned throughout the weekend by just like 2 people who are dedicated solely to that. So anything that changes goes to the help desk, and attendees, organizers, volunteers, sponsors, everyone can go to that place and get all the information they need. Seriously, sleep. When I ran my first hackathon, I tried to be a bit of a hero, and I stayed up the entire time thinking, yeah, no, I'm doing it for the greater cause. But by the end of Sunday, I was a narcoleptic wreck. My co-lead, Fares, hugged me at one point and said, thank you. And my response was to burst into tears. Sleep doesn't make good decisions. So try and stick to the schedule. Where are we at right now? It's usually the easiest way that chaos occurs. Things move back like half an hour and then nobody knows what's going on. You're playing werewolf in the dark during dinner when a sponsor's supposed to be talking. It's not helpful. So try your best to stick to it, but it's not actually going to happen. So instead, make sure your schedule has like roughly like half-hour blocks or hour blocks or something like that, so that when it does shift back, you can shift it back by that half-hour block. Everyone's on the same page, as opposed to everyone trying to remember very specific times that X thing is going to happen that most people don't really care about. So yes, push back by a block. And then once you've done that, make sure you communicate with the rest of your team, because you knowing that lunch isn't happening until half an hour later is great, but when the rest of your team run outside to grab the food, leaves you a little bit in the dark. I really mean this. So not only should you be making sure you sleep, as organizers, you should be making sure your team sleeps. And I mean enforce this, otherwise things do really go to shit. You can enforce this by doing things like sending people off site, by setting aside at least sort of like 6 hours where you're saying, no, you are going to sleep. If I see you in the hacking area, like, you're gone. Because otherwise people do try and be a hero. Okay, so let's go into preparation. So this goes back to some of the stuff I was talking about earlier. We've got food. Food's a major issue. You either have not enough, somebody with some weird dietary requirement, or the food just doesn't show up. So generally the best counter for this is by having an emergency budget, having a little bit of money, at least one meal's worth at least, that you set aside to sort of in case something goes wrong. And this actually is helpful across just about the entirety of a hack. Having that money set aside in case you need to buy something is really useful. You got your venue. This is quick, basic, like I'm sure everyone knows this, I'm sure Tim goes over stuff like this, but make sure you've done all your paperwork correctly, because Tim has experienced really bad paperwork with venues before, and it left him out of 2 venues. Yeah, it's not good. Make sure everyone knows fire exits, general risk, so just make sure your people are safe. Medical emergencies. This bit is really important because this is shit getting real in the most intense fashion. Like, how do I deal with this? And the first reaction everybody here is to panic. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. Because if you're panicking, then the person lying on the ground, bleeding, or whatever weird things happened is also going to panic, and everyone else is going to panic, and no one's going to make any smart decisions. You should have medically trained people. To be able to host an event, you should definitely have people, not person. If you think you can run a 24-hour, 36-hour event with one person who knows how to look after somebody else, you've made a really shit decision. If your medically trained person falls ill or needs to go to sleep, then what are you going to do sort of during that time? It doesn't work. You don't need that. So make sure you have a team of people who are medically trained. Venue security as well. Usually tends to be medically trained if they need to be, but try not to rely on that. And you should also have a first aid kit on standby for things like this. Complaints. This, again, comes back to clear lines of communication. Are you beginning to see themes here? In most cases, ideally, this should be dealt with by your MLH rep when they're there, because mediation training is really important in helping with things like this. But if not, you should be treating every complaint that you get as serious. Who here knows Joe Nash? There we go, awesome. So Joe Nash pointed out to a crowd a while ago that, as a stereotype, we are awkward people. If we are bugged by something enough to go up to somebody else and say, hey, like, this makes me uncomfortable, it probably actually means quite a lot, even if you don't regard it as such, so you should always treat every complaint as serious. Power and Wi-Fi. Power, fairly easy, check with the venue. Make sure there's enough sockets. If you need a generator, make sure you've got the generator. Try not to daisy chain too much, because fire hazards and insurance, and then you end up in a rabbit hole of mess there. And then Wi-Fi. When you're detailing what you're about to do into a venue, and the venue organizer, the Wi-Fi organizer does not look worried, you should be. That many people pounding the internet should terrify any systems administrator, I'm sorry. You should also, I'm sure you all do, but differentiate between bandwidth and router space. It's all well and good being able to do sort of 1,000 terabyte downloads, but if only one person can do that, you're fucked. And there's a calculation, sorry, that we use for this back in the UK, and our calculations haven't been great recently, but this one works, I promise. Basically, 2.5 times the number of attendees works. So that's laptop, mobile phone, maybe a tablet, maybe a Raspberry Pi, maybe something weird. I don't know what you kids have got nowadays. Sponsors, simple, just don't make promises. The worst way that people screw themselves with sponsors is by saying, oh yeah, no, that's fine, we can get you 200 people to this event. And you might be absolutely certain you can, but if they don't turn up, that sponsor's going to be pissed. And you're going to have to deal with that. So, response. You've assessed, you've done your best for event, and you've prepared. And inevitably, shit's hit the fan in a way you couldn't begin to comprehend. So the first reaction is to panic. No, calm your shit. You need to be calm when you make these decisions, and I'll tell you why. First, it's probably not as bad as you think. And second, if it is as bad as you think, then you can't make good decisions when you're panicking. Everyone knows this. It's the same as when you're sleepy. Problem is great in the course. When something goes wrong, people tend to go, oh, well, you know, that was Kevin's fault. Sorry, Kevin. And that's not the important issue. If someone's hurt or if you've got something going wrong, then you need to be focusing on that problem as opposed to whose fault it was. You should use the available resources, which means delegating. As an organizer, you shouldn't be dealing with every problem personally. You should be sort of handing it around to people around you. The MLH team is massively important for this. We literally have 3 of our 5 core values can be aimed to shit going wrong. Hackers first, kind of obvious. Like, we do things to make sure that the hackers at your event are happy. We do also take out the trash, literally and metaphorically. Like, we are there to do whatever you need. And MLH provides. So we will sort of do our best to use our resources to help you, like, when things have gone so spectacularly wrong. And you've also got the hacker community. So the people sat next to you, like, I can sit here and waffle on about everything I know for all day, but there's likely to be people around you who actually know a shitload more. You should be speaking to these people, and when these people turn up at your events, or you turn up at theirs, you should be sort of giving that community, you should be helping out the people at your events, you should be helping out sort of everyone around you, because otherwise we're not a community, we just like the swag. Don't comment on that, anybody. And finally, recovery. So just going to cover this one quite quickly, but it's essentially propagate information, make sure like your team and your attendees, where applicable, know what's going on. For this, PA systems, absolutely fantastic. I love being able to shout down a mic at people. It's why I came here. Notice boards and dedicated screens, like they're also pretty useful. I mean, everyone can see exactly what I'm going to say next, and that's quite helpful, isn't it? So what I'm about to talk about next? There we go. At a stretch, it's, you know, worthwhile, but remember, not all attendees are checking Slack. I've seen some places do sort of texting attendees, which it seems pretty cool, but also must be hella expensive. Like, do it by all means, but make sure you've got the budget and put the budget towards other things first. And then do a post-mortem. So what caused this? What, not who. It shouldn't be about whose fault it is, but how we can prevent this from happening at future events. And then move on. It's a thing that happened, and that thing can't be changed. Staying angry at people just ruins relationships and means that getting sponsors or attendees or volunteers on board next time is going to be really difficult. Doesn't help you, doesn't help your event. So that was a lot to take in. So I'm going to very quickly tell you the big secret about running any tech event. Stick your hand up if you've noticed anything major go wrong this weekend. Like 4 people. Yeah? The buses. Dicks. So the big secret is no matter what goes wrong at your event, nobody cares. Nobody actually cares. You're all happy, you're all here, and like nobody notices. Everyone's just really happy to be at your event, to see the awesome shit that you're doing, and to be a part of that. Well done. So, very quickly, if you are curious about coaching, there's some LARPing stuff tomorrow where basically you get to watch Tim and Lee and Nick shout at each other and pretend that you know at all what to do there. It's fucking fantastic and absolutely terrifying. Do go to that because it's really, really good experience. And that's the sort of stuff, if you are looking to coach, that sort of may or may not happen during sort of your training or interviews. So, very quickly, assess, prevent, prepare, respond, recover, and then remember no one gives a shit. Thanks for listening.